Hey, welcome to the What If Podcast. We're back. It is, what is it? What is today?
17th?
It's Wednesday, right?
17th. What a way to start. We don't even know what dang day it is.
Well, I'm thrown off, man, because we're normally Thursday, and now it's Wednesday.
We're Wednesday people now.
It is November 17th, 2021 on this crisp, I would call it a crisp, Colorado evening. And we have a special guest. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there are 3 boxes now instead of just 2. Right down. Wait a second. Got a finger angle right down there. Jake, you want to introduce our guest?
We're on different things, man.
Yep. You want to introduce our guest?
Yes, sir. Our guest today is one of my very best friends in the whole world, Daniel Heister. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel has a lot of professional titles and all that fun stuff, but I just like introducing him as one of my best friends. So,
and also
that's the most important title I have. So
that's
very
You're just going to say that right in front of me?
Yeah, I will, Zach. I will say that.
Daniel,
we have a lot of talking to do.
Thank you so much for being with us on the What If Project. As we start, and I don't know if Jacob shared with you or not, but this is like the second podcast that we've had of the What If podcast, where we are trying our best to inspire people or to share how we have been inspired. So if you want to check out what the What If Project is about, you can do that. All you have to do is go to www.believeinthewhatif.webnode.com. You can find us on Facebook. Just go to the What If Project. And you can check out our YouTube videos, all 2 of them now.
I was going to say, we just started this.
I'm excited about it.
Get in on the ground floor.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Daniel, I don't know what Jacob shared with you, but there is no script. We talk about what inspires us and how we try and inspire others, and that's pretty much it. That's what we do.
That's pretty much it. What were your other 2 inspirational moments? It sounds like we're pretty fresh here. So what has inspired you originally?
Yes. The reason we kind of started this is because I was inspired to do this to kind of put together all of the things that I'm trying to do, and now we're trying to do, all of us, and you've been sucked into it too now, whether you like it or not,
Happily.
Around this What If project that I've had for a number of years. I've done speaking at schools and in churches and things like that, and I kind of wanted it all to be in one spot, and we had another podcast that I really enjoyed called the Right Answer Podcast that you were on before. And I just wanted to try and just concentrate on one area. So I came up with this idea, and the guy said, yes, we'll do it. And
absolutely.
We kind of said, what are we going to talk about? And we said, we have no idea. So
being the true friend that I am, I gave Dan one sentence, and he said, I'm in.
There you go.
I'm in. I am in.
Here's
the thing that's maybe this fits on script, maybe it doesn't. I have such an admiration for people with a singular focus. I am just the opposite of that. It's my personality and it's everything. If I can learn it, I will, and I'll spend 4 hours on it, and then I'll dump it and never touch it again. And so the fact that you were willing to consolidate is inspirational on its own, just for me. So
it's
call it the What If universe.
That's it. And that's kind of what we do, or we're going to try and do each week. We're going to try to say what has inspired us during the week. That was kind of the challenge that we had for
I think
the week to come.
I don't mean to step on what you're going to say.
No,
Dan.
go right ahead.
Cool kind of juxtaposition of, and maybe where we can start. I introduced Dan as, one of my best friends. He's also a campus pastor at the Windsor branch of Generations Church in Windsor, Colorado.
You can't tell by the way I dress.
Yeah, you just got to have a wide-brimmed hat on. No, that would be more
That's
worship leader, I think.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's what Dan does, and he's very excellent. They're very lucky to have him. And I was just thinking about this, Dan, like you're in an interesting place because like you have to play this role and have a lot of hats on, and where you are trying to teach and also inspire, right? That's part of, I would say that's part of your your job, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but you're trying to inspire people while at the same time, like for your own soul, because I know you, like you live off of the inspiration of of other things that are coming into your life, right? And so like you're in this weird position of trying to inspire and trying to be inspired. So
Yeah.
I don't know, does that speak to you at all?
Gosh, absolutely. And it's so funny when like the one sentence that Jacob gave as a heads up for this podcast was basically, hey, talk about what inspires you. And it's a funny thing that you said that, because my job is the middle ground of that, of actually navigating, like taking my inspiration and bringing other people into it in a lot of ways, right? Like that's almost the role of a pastor, is to be this person who receives a word from God and inspires people to believe in it. And that's not necessarily how it should be, I don't think, but it's what people place on pastors. Hey,
Sure.
Inspire me so that I believe that my life can be different. And so it's true that that's kind of my role. And it's funny how often I am actually inspired by the people I'm supposed to be inspiring. I think that's what's so special for me, is going, hey, actually, it's not by my own power that I am such an inspirational figure, but it's when people step out without asking or without prompting and have moments of going above and beyond that I'm actually inspired in those. So I think you're absolutely right in saying that.
Very good, Jake. That was
No,
good.
yeah, like
No, it's fantastic, because when you think about it, one of the things that I think are trying to do, or going to try and do, I guess, in this podcast, is not only talk about how we're inspired, but where we see inspiration. That was kind of the challenge that we had on the first show. Was okay, this week you need to go out and keep your eyes open for things that inspire you, and not and Jacob talked a lot about it last week, the idea of not missing the opportunity to recognize and validate that inspiration when it comes from other people, to stop them and say, hey, you know what, I don't know if you care, I don't know if this is important to you or not, but I just wanted you to know you inspired me this week from, ABC or whatever. Because I think that goes a long way in not only the person who's receiving it, but the person who's giving that, to stop and validate that inspiration. So I kind of want to go around this, I guess, around the square, I guess is what we're looking at here on YouTube.
call it the squared circle.
Also, I want to encourage everybody who's watching, or everybody who's listening on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Excuse me. Smash that like button and help us out to get more people watching this YouTube. So I want to go around, and I'm going to save you for last, Zach, because
Zach's just a deep bubbling
Zach,
well of.
But he's
Good
good
stuff.
because I know what you're going to say. You said this before we went on air. You're going to say it wasn't inspiring, but it was inspiring. It had to have been. And I'm going to tell you why it was inspiring for me. Okay. a Chicago Bears fan, why it was inspiring for me for you to go see a Packers game. I know it doesn't sound right. It sounds upside down.
We'll connect the dots.
Because I think you're secretly a Packers fan. I think you're like slowly rejecting the Bears and accepting the Packers into your life.
Well, you
I've
need to
never heard anything so
rethink
ridiculous
that,
in my
because
life.
that's not right at all.
No.
No,
False.
No, I am not secretly a Packers fan. I openly and blatantly despise them. That's why this bit of inspiration is just jaw-dropping. It's crazy. I want to share something, and it might be something that you guys have seen, but I did what we were supposed to do. I went looking
Good for you.
I went looking for inspiration. And I'm not sure if it's something that you can look for and find, or if it's something that just comes upon you. But I started thinking back, okay, what is it that I have been inspired about? And the same thing kept popping back in my head, because it's a video, but it's a story. And it's a story that I have no idea why it touches me. I have no idea why it inspires me. But it's just awesome. And it's old. I mean, it's been around YouTube for a long time. And I'm going to play it. It's about 3 minutes long. And then I want to ask you guys about it and see what you think. If you've heard it before, then you'll be able to speak eloquently about it. If you haven't, it may
put
just
that
catch
on
you
me.
off guard and say, that doesn't touch me at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, let's move on. But I'm going to preface it with this. We call this the What If Podcast, and because it's based around the What If Project. But I'm going to throw this out because it's happened to me, and I'm going to share that. But I'm going to throw this out. What if one teacher could change one student's life forever? That's the premise. And so I'm going to play this. Zach and I will be able to see it. You guys will be able to hear it if there's
See it in
some.
my mind's eye.
Yeah, and so here we go.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me, and I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
That's the story of hashtag Be a Mr. Jensen. I absolutely love that story. And I know you guys couldn't see it, but if you go on and just type in Be a Mr. Jensen, you'll see it on YouTube. This guy, Clint, can play the drums. I mean, he can. And I love that statement that he says, Clint, you're not a problem. You're a drummer. And I just love that whole idea. Part of the What If project that we have is talking about is going in and talking not only with churches that we've done before, but teachers and students. We talk about the butterfly effect and the effect that small changes make big impacts. And so I want to ask each one of you, was there a teacher like that for you? Maybe not that changed your world with one thing, but a teacher that looked beyond the normalcy that says, hey, you're a fidgeter, like he did with Cliff, and made a difference. Jake is. Let's start with Daniel though. Daniel's the guest here. Is there a teacher? Was there a teacher like that inspired you?
And I think I want to open it up even more. Like, teacher could be school or could be like anybody who was in a position to teach.
Sure, yeah.
Mostly school you think about, but I don't know. I just want to open that up too.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Do coaches count?
Coaches count, absolutely.
Coaches count.
So Jacob would have had the opportunity to hear him speak at my wedding, not because I asked him to, but because that is who he is. So I had a coach. His name was Espen Hoshin. He's a Norwegian friend, and he whale hunts through the summers for his breaks. Like, he is the most massive, huge human. He's 6'4", 270, and just a rock of a man with this deep, thick, like, I went by Danny in high school. Donnie, you cannot do that, Donnie. And like, he would get punished by referees for saying something positive because they thought he was angry. Like, it's this kind of presence of a man, right? And yet he is the person where I was at the most successful peak of maybe my soccer career, and I was really good at the time and had a future in it. And he pulled the rug out from under me, and like, he saw my character flaws at the time. And I've got a crazier story underneath that of like life change that's led me to being a pastor today. But and he said, Donnie at the time, right? He pointed out, he's like, listen, like, you've got this future ahead of you, but I'm afraid you don't care about it. And he was so right, but I had never put words to that because I just relied on who I was and didn't think that I would ever need to change to take on the world ahead of me. And he was the first person to speak that realization and awareness into my life that, hey, life is going to be about more, and I'm afraid you don't actually care about anything enough to actually be successful in life. And it's that moment now that I talk about inspiration, and what inspires me, it's people who know who they are. Even in the little ways, I always praise Jacob for this reason, is because if Jacob doesn't want to do something, he will just say no.
I know.
And he won't even justify it. And that like was so disarming at first, because I was like, dude, this guy is a jerk. Like, but now it's my favorite thing, is because he knows who he is, and he cares about who he is enough to say no when something doesn't fit, and to say yes when things do. And so it was Espen who opened my eyes to appreciating that. And people like Jake, when I'm like, hey, do you want to play a game? He's like, no. I just go, oh, actually, he knows who he is. He's aware enough about what he cares about to know when he doesn't care about something.
Maybe he's just a jerk.
Maybe
There's
you
a chance that he
identified
is,
me.
yeah,
sir.
correct. There's a chance he's just a jerk, but I think he's more than that. And
Prob-
I
Oh,
think
thanks,
that's
man.
one of the reasons why.
Probably so. Jake, what about you?
I have several teachers that I've really loved and been inspired by. I think to a teacher that I had, and he's a family friend for a long time, and you watched him grow up, Dad. I mean, he's been in our lives for a long time. Joe Trainer.
Yeah. Yep.
Joe Trainer was first my sophomore language arts teacher, right? Like writing teacher. And then he was my speech and debate forensics coach. And he also coached tennis and also did community theater. And he was also a builder, like a really good craftsman too. And you know, also an athlete. And he became a principal too. And just I think what inspired me about him, I think what I was inspired by was something similar to what Dan was saying, was just the pure delight he had in the things that he did. And I'm trying to place it, but you hear all those things, it's actor, singer, performer, craftsman, athlete, coach, principal, educator. And there's just something about that I think has maybe greater ramifications for me now that I actually start to talk about it, and just seeing somebody who just really enjoyed the things that he did, and seeing someone be so unafraid and unapologetic in living the way of the jack of all trades. And that was just so inspiring to me. And living with the duality of saying, I love the performer part of me, and I also love the rugged builder, and I love the poet as much as I love the athlete. And I think that's what comes to mind is Joe Trainer.
How about you, Zach?
Well, I guess I've been going back forth between two, one being you.
Hey, well, geez, that's nice.
And
first of all, let's put
you're
this
a
out though.
teacher.
Suck up.
Let's put this. Let's make sure that everybody knows you're still trying to get your voice back.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we'll get to that. We will get to that. But I didn't mean to
It's
interrupt
from all
you.
that brown nosing.
Yeah, that's brown nosing. So.
And the other would be my high school math teacher, Mrs. Gardner.
Really?
So first, my math teacher, she's the one who really got me, interested in math, and she's also the what we call True Blue, which is our community outreach, and she kind of taught a lot about integrity and just helping the community, and she is the one who kind of, I guess, grew my love of math, which I'm an engineer now, so.
And Zach knows his math.
So that's just kind of, I guess she kind of built that foundation of just, she made it fun to learn math, and I knew her well through all of the community service I did with her, and then with you, you were my youth pastor. So I think you really just kind of laid the foundation of a lot of the, just challenging with the questions you had, and just challenging beliefs, and I think with kind of the two of you combined, just kind of really challenged the what it means to have integrity, and what it means to be to have faith, and I think between the two of you, I think
you turned out pretty well.
Yeah, turned out well.
So much I let you marry my daughter.
But I mean,
That's pretty good.
I feel like as a foundation of who I am, those are probably the two biggest inspirations of, who I am today, outside of family.
Well, that's impressive because, like I said, that the your mother-in-law and I count our blessings every night that Stephanie found you and you found Stephanie, and it's quite interesting when you talk about teachers. You talk about math because that's not an easy one. Math isn't an easy subject to fall in love with, and to have somebody. Mine was always, and I'm sure Jacob's heard me talk about it before. Mine was Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown was my history seminar teacher in high school as a sophomore, and he was the hardest teacher that I've ever had. I mean, any of my college classes that I took, anything in the military. I mean, even maybe harder than my drill instructor in the military. He was a hard teacher, but absolutely loved him because he was fair. And I still use a lot of his sayings today. Jacob probably can remember. Zach probably remembers here, especially when I'm talking with kids and they're explaining things to me. And their first thing always is I ask them a question, and what's the word that they start with? It's like when you do this, or it's like, and I would always say, don't tell me what it's like, tell me what it is.
Is that where he got that from?
That's where I got that from. That idea. Mr. Brown was the person who showed me or inspired me to say what you mean what you say, and just and an example was this. If he were to ask you a question in history's, I grew up to history's my favorite thing. If he were to ask you a question and you didn't know the answer, you were not allowed to say, I don't know. Your response had to be, I'm not prepared at this moment to answer the question, but if you get back to me tomorrow, I'm sure I'll know it. That's what you had to say, because that's what the truth was. I wasn't prepared, and I didn't know it. But Mr. Brown was, I can remember, I can't even, after my brain surgeries, I can't even remember the majority of my high school.
Yeah, and you can remember that.
Yeah, but I can remember that. I can remember that. And we talk about all kinds of things. And I think that's why Mr. Jensen inspires me, is that guy who didn't go along with the whole thing of, okay, Clint's he's a tapper, he's an ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it. He's a problem. He looked beyond that and said, no, I think this kid's got something else. I don't think he's a problem. I think he's a drummer. And it changed this kid's life forever.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that he did by pulling a pair of drumsticks out of his. First of all, what was Mr. Jensen doing with drumsticks in his desk?
He's a closet baller.
He is.
He's a baller. He's like,
that's gotta
that's
be
punk
it.
rock, man. That's hardcore.
Yeah.
That absolutely.
I was just thinking, Dad, just like what all of our stories run with, and even the story about Clint, I think, is this idea that somebody who I respect, or who I want to have respect me, maybe it's both, saw me in a way and saw me through some insecurity, whether they meant to or not, but they saw me and they spoke to an insecurity that I had in myself, and they said, no, and they encouraged growth there. Is that true? Do you think that's true for?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm interested in Dan. I want to ask you about it because your story is a little bit different. Ours is, okay, this is what somebody said or somebody did, and I was inspired and at that moment. But to have somebody say to you, Danny, I don't think you have it. I mean, that's tough to say. Getting that, what most people would say is a harsh evaluation of an individual, and then to say it inspired me. Was it one of those things that hit you all of a sudden, or is it one of those things in retrospect, as you look back, I was changed by it?
Yeah, definitely the latter side of that equation. In fact, in the moment, I think I might have said some choice words that you should never say to an authority figure, right? But that's what was so special, I think, about him, and about, like, had any of my teachers said that to me, I would have rolled my eyes and it wouldn't have mattered, because I didn't actually respect them.
Right.
I think what's inspiring about each of our stories is it had to have been that person who spoke what they did into our lives. Had another person said the same thing, it wouldn't have mattered. And that's what's hard to grasp when it comes to inspiration, right? Like, I even have follow-up questions on you, like talking about, like, what does fair in a classroom mean? And did what Mr. Jensen did, is that unfair to the other students, right? Like, you talked about fairness in a classroom, and I immediately started going, man, what does that mean? But what he did is he had enough context on my life, and he had enough respect. And I think, when you have influence over somebody, even if you don't want to. And I think he knew he had influence over me. There were very few people I looked up to in that season of my life. And it was a pride, and I should have looked up to more, but I think the problem is because I had such few people I respected, he knew that if he didn't say something, he didn't know who might, or who would, or who could. And so definitely the latter, in the sense of, at the time I was like, dude, this guy sucks. That is an awful thing to say to a 17 or 18-year-old kid. And yet I left for college and I went, man, he's right. I don't care about what's next. I don't care about what I'm doing. It's how I landed in Greeley, Colorado. Like, all I knew about Greeley, Colorado is that it smelled. And yet it was in Greeley, Colorado that my life changed. And now I have not just direction for my future, but passion about my future. And so, yeah.
And I think, and Jake, I kind of wanted to touch on yours, on Joe a little bit, because every once in a while, just every once in a while, somebody comes along that you look at and you think to yourself, yeah, that can't be true. That just, there are some people that you look at and you're like, that person has got it together. And
Joe is really cool. He's Joe Cool, man. But it's like what I'm thinking of now is not this idea of like, oh man, Joe is so good at all this stuff and he's so cool. Which, he is, but like, it wasn't a thing of like, I want to be like Joe. It was more of a thing of like, oh, this guy is so okay with all of the different parts of him.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hitting me now. Like, honestly, I haven't really reflected. This is like me reflecting on this.
It's
for the
rare
first time
though.
here.
Isn't it rare? Isn't it
And
rare
I think
that
at the time, going through high school, when you're in high school, you are not okay with so many of the parts of you.
Yes.
And I think that was the insecurity that he spoke to me through, without ever pointing it out or anything. Like, it was just me watching him and how he lived and lives. And it was such a cool thing to see that somebody was okay with all of these different parts of himself. And it made me think, oh, I could live with all of these different parts and all of these different loves that might seem kind of contradictory, or maybe it's like, you can't be that person and this person, and to say I can, and it's wonderful, and I'm better off for it. So I think that's what really.
What about the person that's just, so I said this at the beginning, right, when on the onset, part of what inspires me is people with a singular focus. I hear in you like this diversity in who he was and who Joe was and who he inspired you to be. Like, is it like, what about the guy who's just like, no, I am one thing. I am
Yeah.
just the bricklayer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
is there inspiration in that too?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was because I was kind of already predisposed maybe to, because I was already asking those questions of like, how can I be multiple people? And somebody came along that said, that showed me, oh, you can have all of these things be a part of you. But I think there's just as much inspiration as saying like, hey, like here's this person with a singular focus and a singular vision, and they are solid. I think about how we were talking about that about Zach last week,
Yeah.
of Zach being solid. Now, I mean, Zach has a lot of different loves and a lot of different things that make him him, but part of what we were saying last week is Zach inspires us because he is level and he goes forward, and that is very much needed.
Yeah.
So
It
I
sounds
think that's
like
a good
if
point,
we had
Dan.
if we had a story about Zach being inspirational last week, I don't think you're allowed to tell a story about him being inspirational this week. So I just want that to be said.
It's,
You
he's
can't
just
be
so
inspirational 2
There's not
weeks.
enough. It spills over.
Yeah, you can't be inspirational 2 weeks
Yeah.
in
a row.
Exactly.
a row.
I
Save
think
that
our
for
low
later.
for inspiration,
Yeah.
our bar for inspiration has dropped if you can hit 2 weeks in a row.
You hit 2
Yeah.
weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's it. And this was one of the things I can't remember if we were talking about it last week. I think it might have been a comment that I made when I go to speak at schools. A lot of people will say it's a motivational speaker, and one of the things that I always say is I'm not a motivation. I can't motivate you. You can motivate yourself. I can't motivate you. I can inspire you. And perhaps I can inspire you to motivate yourself, but I can't motivate you. I truly believe that, and a lot of people say no, it's kind of the same thing. So that's the question that I kind of want to throw around the square, and I'll start with you, Zach. Is inspiration and motivation the same thing? Are they synonymous? Can you use them interchangeably, or do they somehow describe two different things?
I think they're linked together, but they're not the same thing. As we're going throughout the week, I kind of thought about that, the challenge of looking for inspirations.
Uh-huh.
And, I just kind of found it hard to find, because when I started thinking about it, it's like whenever you interact with something that inspires you, it should change you. It should move something that was stasis at one moment in your life and moves you in the next. And to truly find an inspiration, I think doesn't come around as often as maybe as much as I said that it does last time we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the motivation carries it after that. Of okay, I heard this or I saw this, and it inspired me, and it moved my soul in a direction that it wants to go. But now I got to get there. So now that I've been inspired, I need to motivate myself to move myself in this direction. So I think inspiration comes first, and then motivation follows. Of saying, hey, how do I get to where this inspiration moved me towards?
Dan, I wanted to ask you: as your role as a pastor, I know what that is like. I know the ups, the downs, the inspirations, the lack of motivation that comes around, and they seem to come. We talked about Zach being level, and nothing seems to be level about that, or at least I don't remember it being that way. The inspirations were way up here. The mountains were just huge, and the valleys are so deep. How do you find that level and keep yourself as a pastor then from going like this? Because when you're on the high, it's great. the mountaintop experience. For me as a youth pastor, it was always the mission trips. You'd come back from these incredible, inspiring, I'm going to change the world, and or the world has changed me moments. And you got back, and either, like Zach was saying, the motivation wasn't there to change, or the inspiration soon just kind of dissipated because you were immersed back into the regularity of the day. So how then, when you get that inspirational moment, how do you capture it, and how do you hang on to it?
Yeah, and when you find out, let me know.
Okay.
No,
Well, I was asking because I don't.
no, yeah, exactly. Here's what I've found, right? I think you're right in saying, like, there's such high highs and low lows, and I absolutely experience those. Like, we'll have a full Sunday, and my message, I feel like, came off really well, and I come home with that little swagger walk to Lindsay,
Yep.
and like, and I feel really good about
Yep.
it. And then the very next day, I get an email about somebody who's unhappy with the church, and I'm boom,
Yep.
and it's gone, right? And I think what I've found about, like, staying level is actually finding, like, that inspiration matters very little if there's not motivation that follows it up. It's kind of what Zach said there.
Right.
Like, I think about, my wife, for example, she will cry whenever you play a military, like, coming home video, like, as a joke. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll just, like, airplay them to the TV and just watch her weep. And, like, even if I tell her it's coming, she just weeps. Here's the thing. She weeps because she is inspired by the story that's being shared there. Yet she is not motivated to do anything out of that story, so her life doesn't actually change. It's a moment of emotion. It's not a moment of life change because
Right.
there's no motivation to actually do anything after it.
Right.
And I think what I found, like, personally, and then as I've translated that to church, is like, hey, I don't want my sermons, I don't want the church to just be somewhere where we talk about a feel-good story and then get home and get back to life.
Right.
I want to be somewhere that actually inspires people, because this life-changing story can motivate you to become something brand new. And I think that's the difference. And that's actually where I find personally my leveling out is when I'm less focused on getting to these mountaintop inspirations and more focused on the motivation for life change in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can get to one without the other. I think that's why they're linked. Is I don't actually think you can be motivated towards something you're not inspired for.
Right.
I think you can have moments of action towards that, like going to the gym, for example. If I wanted to lose weight, like, I can have a moment of action going, I'm going to go to the gym once, but I'm not inspired for it, so it's never going to result in anything. But if I'm inspired towards, hey, I want to become something new, then all of a sudden every 5 a.m. alarm that rings, I'm up because I want something more for it. And so I think I found level in the mundane, which maybe sounds less inspirational than it should, but I actually find inspiration because I want motivation more than inspiration, I think.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. I think of those highs and those lows. And I would always experience both, just like you said, exactly like you said. I know that swagger. I know what it feels like to come out and say, that I killed that one, and then get the email or the call the next day that you weren't all that in a bag of chips, and you thought you were, and boom, back to reality. Jake,
and I might add,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No.
Actually, what I found, I think some people are intimidated by motivation. I think that's actually what's hard about being a leader. I think leaders are inspiring.
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes people are like, he is actually inspiring enough that I feel like I should be motivated, but I really don't want to change.
Right.
I think that's actually what's been most frustrating in this season, in particular in our life and in our church, is we're in the middle of a vision campaign, and it's about so much more than money. That's why we called it a vision campaign. Right. And what people are unhappy with is actually that they're feeling this conviction to be motivated, and they're like, but I like where I am.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's almost like they're afraid of the inspiration that's coming because they know that it's followed up with motivation.
Yeah. And motivation is directly tied to, just like it's tied to change. and in one way or another. It may be weight, it may be a lifestyle, it may be a choice, it may be something, but it's a motivation that moves you to act differently than you have in the past. Jake, I think about you when I think about that word motivation, and your profession, the idea of trying to motivate or inspire or cajole or nudge or beat somebody into bribe
sometimes
into somebody doing something that is in their best interest, which you know and they know,
yeah.
yet I don't want to do it. And most of the time because of pain. But
Yeah.
how do you deal with that in the sense of I am trying to be inspiring, I am trying to be motivating or motivational because I really know that what I'm telling you to do is the right thing. And how do you deal with those people who are like, you know what? I'm not doing it, Jake. Out you go. I mean,
I'll give you the fun answer of like, yeah, this is part of my job. Have to be inspiring, and then I'll give you the much more real answer
Okay.
about when people tell me I don't want to do that.
And then tell us
okay.
why they're different. I'm actually really intrigued
Yeah.
to say or to hear why they're different.
So
Yeah.
I'll try my best to explain it because there is part of the job that I do, which is a physical therapist assistant at a skilled nursing facility, which is, like you said, trying to help people either gain or maintain their goals, because some people are there for a short time and some people are there for a long time.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important to point this out. This is geriatrics. These are old people. These are people who've been around for a long time.
The oldest person I've worked with is 101.
Yeah, it's not like they're forming new ideas in their brains.
No.
Right?
And so I think the fun version of that answer is, trying to bring something of yourself that is beyond just exercise or beyond just like the task that you have to do, because that doesn't work for a long period of time. It doesn't work for change, right? So like if I show up and say, hey, it's time to see how long we can stand up, and I don't bring anything else of my humanity to that portion, it just doesn't go well, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
and that's with just like what you said, Dan, knowing your you're talking about knowing your congregation, and it's like in a weird way, I don't equate our jobs at all, but hey, this is my congregation of,
sure.
Hey, I have to bring more than just my knowledge that standing up is going to be good for you, right? It's more of my humanity to that, which is why it can be very exhausting. And the second part of that, the not fun answer, and I can think of some very specific people who every day I go to, and they're getting closer to the end of the road, to be honest. And the answer is no. I don't care about what you're bringing to me. I don't care about the reasons why. I know it all. I've heard it for a long time, and I just say no. I refuse. And the hard part about that is I have to say, oh, okay, and shut the door.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's some really deep beauty in that, in trying to say, like, I'm trying to fill this space and time with a human experience of being a therapist, and what that brings is a spirit of, let's move into something better, and let's move into something that feels better, that is better, that makes your life better, mixed with the stark reality of the setting that we're in, which is everybody ends up in the same place, and you have to eventually, right? And
sure.
So you have to respect when someone's in a position where they say, I do not want better. I don't want inspiration right now. And that's that's part of the hard part. So what do you do, guys? What do you do when someone says, I don't know, let me know, please?
Yeah. I don't know. And Zach, you can jump in. Daniel, you can jump in. But I think of that in our respective fields. Zach as an engineer, Jake as a physical therapist assistant, Daniel as a pastor, me as nothing. But Daniel, I've been where you're at, and is it exhausting? Do you feel a burden in the negative sense, or an opportunity or a privilege in the positive sense, to be inspirational every week or every time you encounter a congregational member, a youth group member, do you think, okay, here we go? They're expecting it. I got to be inspirational. So dig it out someplace. Do you feel that? I mean, is that a burden for you?
Oh, absolutely. I feel it. You say burden versus like opportunity.
Right.
So I am just this eternal optimist to a fault. Like, it is unhealthy sometimes where like I just have these moments where I refuse to look at what the bad side of it is. And so part of that's just my personality. Part of me feels it as a burden, but is able to transfer it in my heart and my soul to be an opportunity. And I think the reason it's a burden, and I hear Jake talking, and I hear these moments, and it's something that I was writing just this last week, actually, about gratitude. But I think in the same way, like, it's inspiration in the same way. You are only inspired when your reality exceeds your expectations. And I think that's what's actually really hard, is for the people that Jake is going, their reality will very rarely now exceed their expectations. And so they go, I'm fine because what you have to offer isn't going to move my reality far enough to exceed what I wish I had. And I think in the same way, I feel that as a pastor, saying, I think people have this expectation out of church now that the pastor or the church is going to fill this need that is going to be mind-blowing, life-transforming, partially because we use those words in the church, like Jesus changes everything, like we say, or there's transformation, or there's salvation, or regeneration. There's these massive churchy words that set the expectation this high, that when pastors are real, or they don't have the sob story to tell, or they don't have the right whatever to inspire, that people go, oh, actually, reality's here, but my expectation's here. So I don't have anything that I'm inspired towards or motivated towards, either one. And so I think that's why it's a burden. I look at that as an opportunity, partially because I'm so competitive that I'm like, oh, I'm going to bridge the gap. And that's unhealthy, I think, a lot. But occasionally, in a lot of ways, like, it's actually what people need, is somebody who's like, no, actually, I call it the Windsor dilemma. So the median income of the town I live in, that we planted a church in, is $125,000. I go, oh, these families are fine. Oftentimes what the church has done is they've waited for people's lives to fall apart. And then they go, hey, your reality or your expectation is so low that it's easy to inspire you because your life's in the dumps. And so it's easy to meet them. In Windsor, you don't have that because everybody's fine. And so you go, well, how do I prove that Jesus is better than a median income of $125,000, the boat in the garage, the whatever, right? My life is great. How could Jesus be better? And that's where I go, oh, that's the opportunity. That's the competitive drive in me that says, no, but he is. And so that's where I get to try and inspire change or motivate change out of that.
And see, that's what I was going to ask you. In your pursuit of that, is the job to lower expectations or to raise this reality? I mean, is it the idea of saying, you know what, if I can drag them down, then at least
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is
part of
that
it. I
You may
actually,
think
it
you're
was
good, but you're
my
not,
key
man.
phrase. Yeah, exactly. It's not by lowering self. In fact, like I think people's lives, there's this phrase, I forget who says it. I want to say C.S. Lewis because he says everything, right? But
Yeah.
it's this idea that a soul must be very valuable if both God and the devil want it.
wanted. Yeah.
And so I go, actually, like, it's not that we should think of ourselves less then, because clearly we're valuable. But I think my big cheesy phrase was gratitude grows as we elevate the gospel. When you actually go, no, like, what's inspiring is that even though you think you're good, like you deserve death, like there's something greater that you've been redeemed or saved from. It's like if I gave Jake or you guys, I wouldn't give you guys tickets to the Super Bowl. I might give Jake tickets to the Super Bowl, or maybe WWE. That's even better for Jake, right? WWE. WrestleMania. So I've got WrestleMania tickets and I give them to Jake, and Jake shows up at the doors and they say, well, why should I let you in? And Jake goes, well, I've got tickets. And they go, well, did you pay for them? And Jake goes, well, no, but they were given to me. They were paid for by someone else. And they let him into the thing that he wants most, to the thing that will exceed his expectations more than anything he's ever experienced. And yet he wasn't the one who had to pay for him. And so it's like trying to convince people that, hey, what's to come, what heaven could be is actually so much better than anything you could ever expect out of it. And you didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're getting towards the end. And I just love the conversation. But I want to go around the square again. Zach, I'll start with you. Were you inspired this week? And I want to dig into it just a little bit. And if we go over an hour, that's fine. Daniel, I hope we're not keeping you from anything, but we may be
just
getting
a pregnant wife.
Okay, then you're fine for now. If we see you being drug off of the Zoom call, we'll know what's going on. Was it inspiring to be sitting in Lambeau Field watching the Green Bay Packers, which you have loved your whole life, and Aaron Rodgers that you got to see, even though, there was this doubt for a little bit.
Whatever.
Were you inspired? What was happening?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say that I was inspired because I don't think I left with this experience that is going to, I guess, motivate me to do something now.
Except buy more Packer tickets.
Packer tickets.
I've been inspired to go back more.
I mean, I had a fantastic time, and I loved every second of it. I loved spending time with my wife and brother-in-law. I had a great time with them. I loved every second of it, but I sat and I really thought, if there's inspiration that, and I guess if I haven't thought about it yet. But,
you haven't got it yet.
I had a blast. My wife told me that she thinks this is the happiest she's ever seen me.
I can imagine.
So it brought joy to my life. Just a fun experience. But I don't know if that experience is going to, if it moved me in a direction to
change.
I mean, I don't think anything's going to change.
And I don't know. Yeah, I think that's where I don't know. I don't think you have to be moved to change for inspiration, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe you disagree with that, but that's where I'd go. Like, it's like watching a military coming home video. Like, I am absolutely inspired, and I'm not at all going to join the military.
Yeah.
Like,
but
I think the question is this though.
No.
Is it?
Then what is? I mean, if the inspiration doesn't move you or change you, I guess like what is, what's the purpose of those inspirations? I mean, it's a great time, and I'll remember it forever. It's gonna be a fond memory forever. But to call that an inspiration, I don't know what that means.
And maybe that's it. Maybe maybe we dig in a little bit more, and it doesn't have to be this one, but the next one is to define that a little bit. But you used a word, it moved you. Okay, now whether it moves you to change or anything, I think of the military ones. It was a big joke. I don't know how many years ago. If you guys remember remember the AT&T commercial. You guys are probably too young for that. But that was the epitome. That was the meme. That was the thing that pregnant women and that's sad that I can't come up with anything else except pregnant women. That's probably terribly offensive. But
That's
was
all I got around my house.
that
too,
was the thing. That was what you used. That was the joke. The AT&T of dad calling his daughter, and tears just flowed, and you were moved, but you didn't know why. You were just, and it was me, like this be a Mr. Jensen thing. It was like, I feel something. I don't know what it is. Am I inspired? Am I hungry? Am I just sad? Do I wish I had my life back again? I mean, that's maybe a little bit deeper than we want to go, but what's the
I think
thing?
to bridge the two ideas, because I think both are right, is that many times inspiration leads to motivation. But I think that the true, at least in my experience, the true essence of inspiration is my eyes are opened to something beautiful and true. Right? My eyes
That they
are
were
open to something
formerly
beautiful and
closed
true.
to? Is that what you're saying?
That I was not aware of. I've become aware of something now that I was not aware of that was beautiful and true. Or maybe better yet, I have been reminded of something that is beautiful and true.
And then let me dig at that. Let me pick at that scab just a little bit more, and then to say, and because of that, what?
And that leads to that. And because of that, I can live differently. But sometimes I don't. Right? So, like sometimes I just say, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Right? I would like to, every time I'm inspired, to be totally changed and change my life.
I think so
And that
too. I would
happens.
like to
and
too.
that's what we're trying to instill in the show too. But I think it's important to recognize the moments and the truth of inspiration that says like, and sometimes we just remember and we say, yeah, that's good.
That's why people love hymns, right? I'm
Yeah.
such a that's the email I get.
And
more than any
Psalms
other.
too, which are hymns.
Yeah.
Which are hymns.
Like, hey, why don't we play more hymns? And never is it a young person emailing me that, because they have nothing to remember.
I'd rather
That's
listen
right.
to Oceans 8 times in a row.
Yeah, correct. And yet this older person who's had such a moving experience, who had an inspirational experience in the past, just wants to remember it. And that's
Sure.
inspiring for them, is remembering. And afterwards they get to be the same. But then in that moment, they're inspired because they remembered something that at one time opened their eyes to something new.
And I think it's
and
important
also,
to recognize that it's like, I think we all do want to move towards change and action, because, that's a beautiful thing. And that changes lives, which changes lives along in the future exponentially, right? But there's also part of me that wants to say, like, it's just as beautiful and valid to have those experiences of inspiration that say, yeah, that don't lead to those big moments of change. Like I think those still count.
Or even like the opposite of like, or like, it's not actually beautiful when motivation lacks inspiration. Like if I just gave you $5 every day that you go to the gym, that's motivation, but it doesn't feel beautiful.
right.
Like saying, I think there's motivation without inspiration as much as there's inspiration without motivation.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's it. I sometimes feel like Abby, who's my granddaughter, and Abby can get to motoring around. Sometimes she just loses her mind, and she gets on this frenetic pace. And I look at her and I think she's just. It's like she has this big giant plan, and knows exactly what she wants to do. It's just her little body won't let her do it. She's ready to explode, but doesn't know which way to go. And so she goes every direction. And sometimes inspiration hits me like that, in the sense of I'm feeling something. If you want to make it simpler, go to Jim Carrey's The Grinch. Do you remember?
Yeah.
At the very end, he said, "I'm feeling something."
Max, help me.
Yes, help me.
I'm
feeling. And maybe that's the question. That's the challenge this week. Maybe we question that when it happens, when we watch the Be a Mr. Jensen and we're moved emotionally or spiritually or whatever, to ask ourselves that question: what is it that's making me feel that? What am I feeling? That Grinch that touches his hand. What is this? It's a tear. And to ask ourselves why. Why did this particular thing move me? And,
what am I being reminded of that's beautiful and true?
And maybe not even, maybe not just simply reminded of, but maybe that's it. What are we lacking that we wish we had? I mean, there's a number of things that you could put in there.
Yeah, you could put it any other way.
And then you began to, to self-analyze, and maybe that's a good thing, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do. But my big what if for this podcast episode is this: what if inspiration in our life wasn't so random? What if there really is inspiration all around us, and we're just not open to it? And I'm speaking for myself.
Me too.
That I either purposefully or accidentally miss it, or have hardened my heart so much towards it that because that's my fear. If you talk about a fear of motivation or inspiration, that's my fear, is that my heart has been so hardened now that it's incapable of being inspired. What if that's true? That's the fear that you have. And then, of course, you watch Be a Mr. Jensen, and the tear rolls down your eyes and say, maybe there's something in there. I identify with the Grinch so much at the end.
So does Dan.
What's that?
So does Dan.
I am the Grinch. Quite literally, everybody in my church calls me the Grinch. Mostly because I just hate Christmas. But I think in the same way, though,
because it's not a very big deal in the church. So
that's exactly why I hate it. But I think in the same way, you were talking about hardening your heart because like inspiration's all around us. I also think like systemic inspiration in the same way. We sometimes go to the same place because we know we'll find it. Like my wife knows she will find inspiration at those military coming home videos.
Absolutely.
I often, through music, right, I will listen to the same song a few different times if it tells a beautiful story or it's sung in a beautiful way, because I know I'm going to find inspiration in the same place. So I think in the same way as like we close ourselves off to it, we also go back and back and back for the same thing.
And I would just remind you, as an older pastor to a newer pastor, that's the same thing that your person who's wanting the hymn wants to do.
Yeah.
That's what, and believe me, I'm with you of the whole idea of being yelled at because why don't we sing more hymns? Because they suck. That's why. They're slow. The words are great. Let's read them. That's fine. But I can't take the tempo, and we need to pick up the pace. That's why. And then you take all those words and you shove them back in your mouth because you know that's not appropriate to say, but that's what you're feeling. But that's exactly what they're doing.
Correct. Yeah.
We do find inspiration in familiarity. I think we do. And I don't think that that's particularly a bad thing, unless it's about hymns. But
I'm just gonna take this 2 minutes, clip it, and accidentally play it on a Sunday.
Yeah, there you go. Accidentally play it. Say,
hey, I didn't say it.
Yeah, you didn't say it. This, but this
Sorry.
is coming from a former pastor, so it's got some credibility to it. So
it's James Bond's phrase where it's Skyfall, which is my favorite James Bond movie, right? And he's talking with Q, the young Q, for the very first time. And it's basically this back and forth about old versus new, this quick little quip they have where like age is no guarantee of experience, and he follows that up by responding with, and youth is no promise of innovation.
Yeah.
And I go, in the same way we look at inspiration the same way, is these people who know where to find it in familiarity. Youngers go, no, that's not inspiring. And yet the young, innovative ways of inspiring, the olders go, no, that doesn't matter to me. And so we trick ourselves into making inspiration a one-stop place, and when it's so much better and so much more than that.
Yeah. Okay, we got 2 minutes left, and I can't let it. I've got to insert this in, because I'm not sure, Daniel, if you're a fan of it or not. But I think it's important to know that three of us, and Dan, I don't know if you have or not, have watched Shang-Chi. And
Jake,
you've
watched
watched
Disney Plus now.
I tried. I literally, my wife and I sat down to try it, and Disney Plus wouldn't load. Literally this past Friday. So it's Disney's fault, not mine.
I just wanted to, and I think it's important because I want to talk about it. I think that's why it's important. That's all I got. For just a few minutes, though, of what's coming up. The Eternals have come out. Jake, you've seen it. Daniel, have you seen the Eternals?
I haven't.
Are you a Marvel fan at all?
I was.
What
had
happened?
This conversation with Jake the other day. I watched every single film.
Dan feels like he's fallen behind.
Up until Avengers Endgame, I kept up. I saw all of them in theaters. I was in. And now, like, I just feel like they're asking too much of me. There's TV shows. There's
Dan doesn't like when people tell him you have to watch or have to do something.
It's Ted Lasso. Everybody tells me, Dan, you'd love Ted Lasso. It's
and I don't
about
wanna watch
soccer. It's a funny show. It's heartwarming. And because so many people have told me I'm going to love it, I go, I'm not going to watch it.
I'm not going to watch it. Yeah. It's kind of like the vaccine, I think. That whole idea. No, I don't
You're
think
going to love it.
You're going to love it. It's good for you. You're going to love it. You know what? I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I'm going to do it. Jake, what are you looking forward to this week? Anything. What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to, it's not this week, but the thing I'm looking forward to most is having you and Mom come down to Texas for Thanksgiving.
We'll be there on Tuesday night. We'll be there Tuesday night.
So that is what I'm looking
Daniel, what are you
forward
looking forward to this week?
I think next week is the next time we get our ultrasound. You want to talk about inspiring.
Yeah.
Every time I look at that little baby move, we found out it was a boy last week.
Oh, my gosh.
So we got Pastor Dan Jr. incoming. My wife has said no to that name already, but I'll start a petition you guys can sign.
Okay.
But every time I see that little baby wiggle in there, man, I just I want to weep. Because it's so cool to me. And just like with our story, we got a background of we lost a baby this spring. And so it's so inspiring. It's so cool.
Yeah. Zach, what about you? What are you looking forward to this week?
I'm just, I guess I'm looking forward to the weekend to,
For the week to be over. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I love that. I love it.
I think there's a song or two about that.
I think so. You got something big planned this weekend?
Probably, but
my wife hasn't told me yet.
My wife hasn't told me yet. I'm sure she has twice. I was just thinking, what is happening this weekend?
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's something. I haven't fully recovered from the game. With my voice.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to my voice coming back and not going through puberty a second time. And just kind of recovering further.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Tuesday, getting down to Texas, and having some Thanksgiving down there. Getting to see you and Amanda. Looking forward to that. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show. I thought it was just a fantastic discussion. I want to encourage everybody who's listening, share this video. Subscribe on YouTube. Like I said, hit the like button and share it. Share it on Facebook. Share it whatever social media platform you want to share it on. but share it, because I think we're asking important questions. What if is always an important question. Doesn't matter what follows. It's always important to look at and to kind of put into your life and ask those questions of what if. And if this doesn't inspire you with the stories that have been told today, the ideas that have been shared, I'm not sure if you can be inspired, but maybe you can. And if you can't, share it with somebody who you think can. So again, hit that subscribe button. Check us out on www.believeinthewhatif.webnode.com. So Daniel, thank you so much. For Zach, for Jake, for all of us here at the What If, we want to, first of all, wish you, because I'm not sure, we won't be here next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving. So I think we've got a week off. Talk about inspiring. So we first and foremost want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I think we would be remiss if we did not ask Daniel. Daniel, you got any big plans for Thanksgiving? What's going on?
We are pausing for the first time. So my family always goes to Utah for Thanksgiving. We've spent a few with Lindsay. This week we are doing nothing.
Oh,
and in its own way, it is the best and most inspiring thing that you could hear me say as somebody who wants to do everything. And so it is our forced pause button because we want to practice what we preach. And we've been talking about taking a pause lately in the midst of the chaos that so often comes with this. So nothing is our answer.
Maybe you can catch up on Shang-Chi.
That's actually exactly what we're going to do. And all the other ones that we can. So
Yeah. So Jake, we'll see you guys in just a couple, 2 or 3 days. Zach, you'll be off to your family's, your mom's house,
Yes.
where it sounds like there's going to be a huge gathering. That's what your mom said.
I guess a normal gathering.
Well, okay, when you get together, yeah, a normal gathering of 30 or 35 people.
We have a big family.
So we want to encourage everybody to stay safe this Thanksgiving, and always ask yourself that question of what if. So for Zach, for Jake, for Daniel, we want to thank you for listening, and have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.